So when you're picking a CDN, it's all about reliability and speed, right? I mean, we've been looking at Cloudflare for our latest project, but have you seen how Akamai stacks up?
Yeah, Akamai has some solid features. The global reach is impressive.
True, but the cost can be prohibitive. Plus, their setup isn't exactly user-friendly. You know, I tried setting it up once, and man, was that a headache. I swear I spent more time on the documentation than coding.
Ha ha ha. Sounds like my experience with most tech setups lately.
Exactly. And then there's the security aspect. Cloudflare has got this amazing DOS protection which really helps us sleep better at night. Have you ever had to deal with a DDoS attack without proper CDN defense?
Not yet, but from what I hear, it's not fun.
No kidding. It's like trying to build a house during an earthquake. But hey, let's talk catching strategies. How do you feel about using stale while revalidate with your current CDN?
It works well for static content. Definitely improves load times.
Absolutely. Though you need to be careful with dynamic content. Otherwise, users might end up seeing outdated information. Trust me, that's a support nightmare waiting to happen. Oh, speaking of which, did you see that blog post on optimizing images for CDNs? Speaking of which, have you looked into the architecture differences between different CDNs? Understanding how they distribute content can really impact performance.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Some use a hierarchical structure while others rely more on peer-to-peer network.
Right. But most commercial CDNs still follow a hierarchical model. Edge servers are key, distributing cached content closer to the end user. Have you ever dug into how these edge servers interact with origin servers?
A bit, but I always find it complex with all the routing and caching involved.
It is indeed. The way data is routed through the network can make or break your application's responsiveness. For instance, if an edge server fails to retrieve content from the origin server efficiently, it could lead to slower load times and increased latency. That's why choosing a CDN with robust interconnectivity is crucial.
Makes sense. I've noticed that some CDNs offer more granular control over edge configuration.
Exactly. Customizable rules for cache invalidation and TTL settings can be game changers. They allow you to fine-tune how often content is refreshed at the edges without causing unnecessary strain on your origin servers. Plus, having good analytics and reporting tools can help you understand where bottlenecks occur in your architecture. Absolutely, those analytics tools are invaluable. Now, switching gears slightly. Have you thought about the differences between deploying a global CDN versus a regional one?
Yeah, it depends a lot on the target audience and budget. Global CDNs cover more ground, but can be pricier.
Precisely. Global CDNs like Cloudflare or Akamai provide extensive coverage across continents, which is great if you have a widely distributed user base. However, if your users are mostly concentrated in specific regions, going with a regional CDN can be more cost-effective and efficient.
True, especially when considering latency and bandwidth costs.
Exactly. Regional CDNs often offer lower latency because they don't have to traverse as many network hops. This can significantly improve performance for local traffic. Plus, managing fewer points of presence, POPs, can simplify operations and reduce overhead.
That makes sense. It's all about balancing coverage with cost efficiency.
Definitely. But keep in mind that even within regional deployments, you still need to ensure redundancy and failover mechanisms are in place to handle any issues that arise. Have you ever dealt with setting up such a system?
Not extensively, but I've helped configure some smaller scale setup.
Good stuff. The key is to understand your traffic patterns and where your users are located before making a decision. Otherwise, you might end up overspending or under-delivering on performance expectations. Absolutely. Understanding traffic patterns is crucial. Speaking of which, let's talk about cache control mechanisms in CDNs. How do you manage cache invalidation for frequently updated content?
It can be tricky. Using proper HTTP headers, like cache control and expires, helps a lot.
True, those headers are fundamental. Setting appropriate max age values ensures that the content stays fresh without overwhelming the origin server with requests. But have you ever had to deal with purging caches manually when critical updates are made?
Yes, it's not fun. Manually purging can be error-prone and time-consuming.
Agreed. Automated purge options provided by some CDNs can save a lot of hassle. For example, Cloudflare offers API-based purge commands, which can integrate seamlessly into deployment scripts.
That sounds handy, especially for continuous integration setup.
Exactly. Automating the process reduces human error and ensures consistency. Also, implementing versioning in URLs can be a clever workaround to avoid manual purges altogether. When you update content, just change the URL slightly, so the CDN fetches the new version automatically.
Smart approach. Keeps things clean and straightforward.
Indeed. And don't forget about stale while revalidate. Great for reducing latency while ensuring eventual consistency. Have you used that feature much? Absolutely. Stale while revalidate is a lifesaver. Let's pivot to optimizing static content delivery with CDNs. What strategies have you found effective for serving static assets quickly?
Well, leveraging edge caching definitely helps. Making sure images and JavaScript files are properly cached reduces load time significantly.
Right. Edge caching is key. But another effective strategy is using content optimization techniques like minification and compression. GIZIP compression can drastically reduce file sizes, leading to faster downloads.
Definitely. And it's great when the CDN handles that automatically.
Exactly. Another thing to consider is asset versioning. By appending a version number or hash to your file names, you can ensure browsers always get the latest versions without having to clear their caches manually.
That's a neat trick. Keeps everything up to date without user intervention.
Absolutely. And don't forget about leveraging browser caching effectively. Setting proper cache control headers on static assets allows browsers to store them locally, reducing the need for repeat requests. Have you encountered any challenges with getting browsers to respect these headers?
Sometimes it can be tricky, especially with older browsers that don't handle headers as consistently.
True, but most modern browsers are pretty reliable. Still, testing across different environments is crucial to ensure consistent performance.